Okay, third time's a charm. Let's do this.
Take three.
Hello, friends, and welcome to the Inclusion Starts Now podcast. I am here with my friend Wes, who I have met through social media. I have worked with him on a couple of projects, and I am just so excited to have him on the podcast today. He has kind of been the support to help me with this podcast. So I am so excited for Wes to tell you about what he does. So, Wes, take it away.
Hi, I'm Wes, also known as Wes of Disabledland. I am the humble host of the Disabledland podcast, now in episode 7, wherever you get your podcasts, officially wherever you get your podcasts. Apple is a nightmare. Um,
Yes.
and yeah, I'm happy to be here and happy to have helped out. It is podcasting, once you figure out how simple it is, it's kind of dangerous because it takes away all your excuses as to not do it. So
Yeah. And Apple Podcast, that was the last one that I finally had to like sit down and be like, figure this out. Like, come on.
I literally started trying to figure that out 3 weeks before my first episode dropped.
And
And I
that
only just got it working last week.
I don't know why it's so hard, but it really is. Well, I love that you were here. And how this all started was that I wanted to talk to you. So, if anybody follows both of us on social media, I think it is very safe to say that we have a lot of very similar opinions, me and Wes, but we both handle them in very different ways, which I mean, I love because that's just life. We all have our own ways of communicating, and there, I wish that I was as brave as you for some of the thing of how you say things. I wish I could say that to people. I grew up very much being afraid to be yelled at, and so I'm not a big yeller. But it's so important to get your point across and to show that you're passionate. And I think you just do such a good job communicating that. And so I reached out to you because this kind of all started because I had this book club where we read that book, Disability, Visibility, and it's a bunch of essays by disabled authors, all compiled together by Alice Wong. Great book, just came out the second book. But when I read this at book club, one of the women was just like, she felt like she was being yelled at and she took offense to it and was like, didn't like reading it because she was like, I didn't do this. Why am I the one being yelled at? So I would love to just hear your opinion on like language, on how people without disabilities kind of like, you know, what, how would you
Dude,
have responded to this woman, I guess?
I think I probably have on some occasions online and in public said something along the lines of, "Lady, you have yet to be yelled at. If you think this is being yelled at, you have not been yelled at." To quote, not exact, but close to good friend of my pod, Bhavna of the Bloody Broads pod, there are a few things more fragile than a white woman who has never been challenged about anything.
Ooh,
And I agree with her fully on that. I take it a little bit further of there are few things more fragile than a white mother of a disabled child, and the word is disabled, special needs mama bears, that has never been challenged by an actual disabled person they cannot control.
so what you just said, I would love for you to kind of explain that because I think there are a lot of people who, and this is actually something I feel like I'm hearing more where it's like the difference of calling someone a special needs mom and then a difference of like this activity is like helping people with special needs. So tell us about special needs and the whole language of disability and everything.
Um, Special needs is what I've been calling from the start dumpster fire language. It should be thrown in the dumpster and burned. Um, it is taking what are the human rights of disabled people and turning them into something extra, an extra tax, an extra payment. And it basically makes everything that much harder, not just for the disabled community, but for the parents of disabled kids that suddenly can't understand why their child's programs are being cut at school, why there isn't a ramp where there needs to be a ramp, because some foolish human being, I promise you, not a disabled person, has gone and taken that stuff and, oh, disability language makes me uncomfortable, so I'm going to call it special needs. I liken it to the blue liquid that is used in feminine hygiene product ads because they don't want to show what is really there. It's we have to soften this for the rest of the world.
Yeah. So have you always felt this about language, or when do you feel like, was there like a turning point in your life that you were like, wait, this language sucks. Like, I don't like this.
I was one of those people that was a probably self-hating disabled person growing up. I talk about that a little bit in my podcast and my guest spots on Bitching and Bolosing, that is part of my network with Courtney and Brittany. Well, I'm part of their network more. Um, they I didn't like any of it. I wanted nothing to do with any of it. There was a lot of internalized ableism because anytime anyone was trying to call me disabled, it was because they were trying to railroad me. And they were typically trying to railroad me into a basket of children that, once again, internalized ableism at the time, had more severe disabilities than me, like severe cases of cerebral palsy, children that were probably, or at least viewed at that time, of never going to do anything on their own. And that wasn't me, but I was being shoved into that box. Now, for me, it's a matter of I have come to learn to realize that those kids and me were on the same team. The difference is I can't be controlled because of my disability, and I cannot be made to shut up. I have a voice. And I have actually started to move away a little bit from the disabled kids advocacy and move on to it is just disability advocacy, because some of these accounts that I am like calling out on Instagram, and I end up doing it weekly in one way or the other, are the accounts where it's a 30-year-old man being treated like it's like here's Jim's diaper change at the age of 30,
Hmm.
that they're recording and then putting on Instagram for this idea of awareness. When I say I am the disabled person you can't shut up, I am the disabled person you can't control, it's because if you look at the largest accounts with the most followers and the most views, the most big inspiration awareness accounts, they're being using the kids, the disabled kids and the disabled adults that are the least capable of speaking, the least capable of saying no, and the least capable of, feel free to bleep this if you need to, getting the fuck out of that situation. They are the kids and the disabled kids and the disabled adults that can't get up and walk out of the room, that can't go to away at college at 19 and get away from this toxic nightmare that they are trapped in.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a few things. So first I want to talk about internalized ableism for anybody who is listening who does not know what that is. So ableism is I mean, I guess how would you best describe it? I usually say it's just thinking less of the disabled community, that it's like not this equal footing. Um, being discriminating towards the disabled community.
Yeah, for
You want to
me,
add to the ableism definition of that?
yeah, I mean, for me, it's more the internalized ableism is more self-hate.
Yeah,
And then the ableism itself is it's basically just, you know what racism is, at least most people know what racism is. God knows too many people don't. It's basically the racism, the feminism, all that, only it is turned on to disabled people. It
yeah,
is the fact that we are treated like second class, third class citizens, if not fourth or fifth. We are seen as an afterthought. We are seen as an extra. And it permeates every level of society. It crosses over with racism. It crosses over with sexism. It crosses over with ageism. It crosses over with just about everything. It is just an extra level of discrimination.
yes. And so then, so seeing it as like, you have to fight to get access to public spaces that are like for the community, like playgrounds, you can't access that, depending on, excuse me, if you have like a disability that, then you go to a playground with mulch in your community and you can't access that. Like all of these, and then people thinking less of you. So all this ableism growing up with a disability and then having everybody telling you that you are less than them is definitely going to make you start believing that you're less than people. You're going to start like, I mean, I think internalized ableism is something that a lot of disabled people go through and have to and like kind of reflect on. And I mean, trying to find that voice inside of them to like push out all those ableist remarks to be like, no, I have a voice. I am here, like, I'm part of this community too. I think is so important, and it's hard to find because I think sometimes people have kind of been um also a little brainwashed into like being segregated was best for them. I've had a few commenters tell me that they have a disability, and especially, I don't know if you saw one of the most recent reels I had about behavior. And I had quite a few. I had this one person in particular said they're an autistic adult and they hit in middle school and high school or something. They ended up going to juvie and they were like, and that's where I learned. I had to be segregated to learn that. And my response was like, I'm so sorry that you think you had to go to juvie to learn that. Like, I'm sorry that you didn't have like teachers or mentors or friends or like a team that can like help you learn that without being like segregated from everyone. Um, I've also had other people tell me that they love their segregated class because they got to learn, um, basic like social skills. And I'm like, you can also learn that
It's called
being
home
with your
ec.
community. Like, so
Yeah, like I see a lot of, and now you've got parents doing the self-segregation of not just their children, but themselves, and creating these little online communities of medical parents or special needs parents, or my favorite term of all, rare disease parents. I'm sorry, you were not parenting a rare disease. You were parenting a child. And when they do that, it is always only certain diseases or certain disabilities. You never hear about anyone calling themselves an HIV mom. You never hear anyone proudly saying, I am a pediatric brain cancer mom. Like it is, no, no, no. I am a tumor mom. I am an intestinal tumor mom. No, you're raising a child. And a lot of it is the parents are already in such a bad situation because there are not enough supports, that they end up doubling down on this superhero narrative that are fed to them by often larger disability parenting accounts that are making it seem easy, because, I'm sorry, if you're raising a severely disabled child and you have time to also record everything, you're not telling the truth about something. And a lot of the times they're lying about how much money they have to support their disabled child with, not what most people have. And they're lying about how many caregivers they have in the home with this. I have seen families that are like, oh, it's just me on my night shift looking after my disabled child. Here's our routine. I am absolutely certain they also have 24-hour care in the home, and that is their one night where they have to do it all on their own.
So
I
it's
guarantee
annoying
you.
that they're posting it like, look, it's or not easy, but like, look, it's doable. This is like, look at how like, do you feel like it's because they're sitting there like, look at how amazing I am taking care of my child, or like
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
like a
because
false pretense, I guess.
yes, and because they are also typically selling something, often they are connected somehow to some sort of MLM situation. I have seen parenting
Wait, really
accounts,
quick, MLM is market level,
multi scammers,
multi-level marketing.
multi-level marketing,
I just
aka
usually I
internet
bring that up.
scams.
Someone will not know what it means, but it means
Yeah,
that like the people at the top get paid the most, and then they keep like, sell this product,
yes,
and then the portions keep going up to the person at the top. I just feel like that's
yes.
an important definition, but continue.
Think about any vlogger you've ever seen that has broken out to start talking about athletic greens, AG1, or anything like that. It is that kind of situation, only they're not being honest about it. These are the parenting level concepts of very similar to the 19-year-old kid that is always on Instagram driving a different car every week, but he's renting those. He doesn't own any of them. It is like that, only slightly reversed. They are not being honest about how much easier it is for them to care for this child than it would be for the average parent watching the account.
That is interesting. I don't think I've ever thought of it like that. Because I know I think when I talk to you most on social media, it's because of the disabled child's safety of like not putting them, you know, in a shower or on the toilet and like showing these very personal moments. But I don't think I've ever thought about this like skewed vision of people who are like very much connected to the disabled community kind of like lying about. I mean, it also kind of feels like they're like kind of falling into this, I don't know, like the superhero trap of, I know I've been like, when I worked with kids and we'd like go out in public, I had this one student and we went to the zoo, and I had someone come over to me and like had put his hand on my shoulder and was just like great job. And I was like, what the
Oh yeah.
hell? Like, who are you? Like,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I
Because
don't know, me
because
and my friend are at the
because
zoo.
because you're a hero for looking after this. My God, what even is that? Looking at this poor soul. I mean, what is wrong with them? How do they poop? Will they ever have sex?
How will they? No,
Like,
it's totally
and
serious.
it's,
Like,
and then parents want to lean into that. Now, there are a lot of conversations now of that we are having at my partner podcast, Bitching and Bossing, where and I am a little less hardline on this just because of the era we live in, of I am personally less concerned about whether or not disabled kids are depicted online so much as the way they are depicted online.
yeah.
I don't need to see a small disabled child um frustrated and crying because something doesn't work for them to know that that doesn't work for them. I don't need the example.
Well, do you
Uh,
feel like that's because you've kind of lived that life? Because, like, what about people who don't experience a lot of, like, they don't
I
see a lot of
I
disabled
think
kids?
I think it's about having basic media understanding for one, and it's also about it is not a child's job to be an awareness flag.
Yeah.
Like yeah, these bigger accounts, they're, making those accounts are monetized and they're making money off of it, and don't let them tell you otherwise. Um, they, but just the kid that is getting used for content just to make a point,
Hmm.
they didn't ask for that. They didn't consent to that. And it's like, okay, well, it's raising awareness. Well, that's not their job.
Yeah.
They don't even
Yeah.
know they're doing, and it's one thing for a 10 or 12-year-old of, okay, they are aware of how social media works, like our good friend Dallas.
Hmm.
Dallas is aware how social media works. Dallas is aware there are bad people there, but Dallas is old enough to at least make the decision, for
With
better or
consent.
worse, of that, she wants to do that. And if she wants to kill that or want that video down, it can be down. A lot of these other kids are not given that choice, or are
Yeah.
too young to have that choice. Now, there is a flip side to whether or not any child should be online right now. When you look at the things that are happening with AI, when you look at the things that are happening with like things being stolen. But I mean, I can tell you, I have had to block multiple shit poster accounts, these little meme lord dirtbags that have taken larger name disabled kids content, edited it, and turned it into funny memes. Kids that are just like our friend Alice, where it's like a little girl in a wheelchair. So I'm going on my first walk of the year today, da 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 da, and it clicks away to that's a lie, because she's not actually walking. Ha ha, funny joke. So it's this question of, that's just a little girl fully dressed in her wheelchair talking about her day. That's not even a kid, a 13-year-old kid in a damn diaper, having their tubes in their stomach changed. And there is no shame in that, but I liken it to you, so some one of the mothers or whatever having the flu, having a stomach flu, and or they've got their head in the toilet, they're throwing up, they've been sick for hours, they're passed out on the bathroom floor in their underwear. Do you want that on Instagram? Do you want that sick mama's awareness.com or whatever? No, you don't. So why the hell would you do it to your kid? Because they say, oh, well, my child will never be able to consent. And to that, I get really nasty and say, well, what else are you allowing to happen to your child just because they can't consent?
Yeah.
Because maybe police should be called.
I have a very hard time with well, I it's hard just in general to look at all of it, especially now as a mom. It is this really interesting because yeah, at first I used to post to my kids on social media. I was like, I had these rules of like, no bathing suits, no bath, no like they'll always be covered or something. And now it's kind of started to become like it's not their faces, but I don't know,
Yeah.
the
And,
when I continue to grow, the more I'm like, I don't know if I even want to show the back of your heads. I don't want people to know like how old you are. Like I've been trying to find general like I even try to I don't think I say their names anymore. I've been really big about that. And but I do get stuck sometimes on like, where's this fine line of like raising awareness so people can be like, oh, this is cool. I do want you to be included. But like, these are your disabilities. Let me learn. Like, how do we find this like healthy balance of like, especially for a kid who might not have a way to like consent the way that we want them to, or like for them to be able to say yes or no, like touch something,
well,
thing.
exactly. And they're especially when they're young enough that they can't even understand the concept of the internet, or that, people are watching. Like I have gotten more hard line on this the last few months, because I was a little more lenient on it. But then I've also seen how some of the most well-meaning people in the world can compromise. And I can't, because I see where it's going, and I see how it can be a slippery slope. And I don't want that for any disabled kid. So once again, it's how you're depicting them, and whether or not they're even old enough to understand that they would want to be depicted that way. And especially if you're setting up situations, and clearly setting up situations for them to be used as awareness of, look how hard it is for this child. And I want to be clear, it is not just the disability parenting community. Just for like full thing that, because I know Wes is the big meanie and the parent shamer, and oh, these people are just trying to do so much good in the world or tell their stories. There is, and I will not name, but there is a very, very big disabled influencer out there on socials right now that is trying to play themselves off as a single disabled mother, and not talking about both how much money she has and how many care people she has or has not, and how much help she has, and is also turning her child into, that is what her channel is, because she has figured out people want to watch her child more than they want to watch her now.
I definitely think social media has its pros and cons. I tell people all the time that I have a very big love-hate relationship where it's really nice when people can get the resources and information and like continue to switch their practices to make things more inclusive. But then there's also just like really scary people who comment and say things, and you're like, how are you here? Like, why is this okay?
Because sorry to cut you off, but this is the problem you personally are going to run into, because I have seen it happen, and we will both know what I'm talking about, and I'm not going to talk about it. This is the problem you're going to run into of, your job is, you are going in education, you are talking about these issues, you are trying to get people to raise their kids inclusively. You are going to find it harder and harder to get the algorithm to show your media. And that's why I'm glad you're doing the podcast, and I encourage it. You're going to find it harder and harder for the algorithm to get that algorithm to show your media if you are not showing your kids, or you are not showing somebody's kids. Another thing I want to say is, these little family accounts, these little disability, we're just awareness family accounts. I don't know how to tell anyone this, but none of those accounts got to 5K, 10K, 31K followers by not dialing into that algorithm, by not seeing, oh, people looked more at this video than any other video. I should make more videos like that.
And I just read a book that's called The Chaos Machine, and it's all about the dopamine hits that people get from social media. And yeah, I mean, it's really wild that
It's not,
and I think what's hard is that like, cute kids on the internet, like I mean, I have a bunch of family members who will send me videos of kids and they're just like, look at how cute this is. Like I know I put it in my head that I do think the majority of the people who are looking at that, they're just not educated on the information and whatever. But even if it's just one creeper on there looking at that video in a way that they just shouldn't, that
but
is more than enough reason for me not to ever post my children online.
it's not just the creepers though. I mean, yes, the creepers are out there, and I have warned people of a few, but it is just, even just the best intentions and how disabled kids are being depicted. It's like, have you ever seen that Vince McMahon meme where it's like five different pictures of Vince McMahon, him getting more and more excited?
Okay.
Or like it's an old man from professional wrestling getting
Okay.
more and more excited. And on the thing, it's like this happens, this happens. Well, I have one of picture of child, picture of cute child, picture of cute disabled child, picture of cute disabled child upset.
Mm.
And the viewer just getting more and more excited because, and the comments rising because literally the more dialed in you get to the content, the further it goes. And these accounts, there is no way a 20K account happens without dialing into the algorithm. I have been doing this 5 years. I am at like, I think 1,200 followers. Like it does not happen. Now I reject the algorithm completely. I fully admit I will do things to piss people off
Mm.
just because I don't know if this is self-sabotage or I just know I don't want to get that big because I don't ever want to compromise myself like
They
that.
can't control you. You said that at the
Exactly. They can't control me. They can't shut me up. And I will walk away things. I will walk away from things that I love just to make sure that I don't compromise. I have stepped away from like accounts where I have followed this kid's journey because I just can't do it anymore. There were probably 5 accounts that when I started doing this, I followed, and you know, a lot of them were like kids that were like had been to the hospital that I was at. A lot of them were like transplant kids where, you know, things are touch and go. And once again, like a reality show, you just want to make sure they make it. And there's been a few occasions with like very big accounts like that where it was like, okay, I am reasonably sure this kid is going to be okay. I don't have to feel guilty about that I stopped watching the show now.
yeah.
And on one case, it was one day I just did it where I always felt there was too much medical information being shared, but
Yeah.
she was kind of like Dallas, where she was old enough and she was into it. But then one day, the mom posted a video on her stories of just her. It was her and one of her friends playing in the other room, and she was just like on the other side of the door sneaking the audio of it. And I was just like, this kid can't just get a moment of peace. And I was done, and I didn't block it, but I unfollowed and just
I think that's a very, I mean, I think that's kind of the dangers of having these smartphones that can just record anything. I know I've totally recorded my kids saying things that I think are just hilarious. I don't post it. It's more for me to like bring it back to them, but it's still like, I've actually brought this up with my partner that we take pictures when they're sleeping because they're so cute. I mean, again,
mhm.
we don't post it. This
Yeah.
is like purely just for us. But I'm also like, are they going to grow up and be like, why would you guys take pictures of me sleeping? Like that is a private moment. And I'm like, you know what? I don't know. And I'm going to feel really bad, but it's like this, it's interesting. And I just realized I have no idea how long we've been talking. I've been super professional about this. I do want to talk about one more thing.
Okay.
Um,
I will try not to go off on a tangent.
it's okay. We all do. We're passionate. It's what happens. So have you ever had a conversation with a parent that is like sharing too much information that has been like a successful learning moment for them?
Yes, I have. Unfortunately, it's not as many as the parents who block me. Um, and they usually then get called out in my stories, either by name or by enough that everyone knows who they are.
Yeah,
You've probably seen those stories.
I have.
Uh, but I do get the odd message. I mean, really, that's kind of how I ended up with the podcast with bitching as part of bitching and ball sings deal was I had been working with them. They didn't need that much work, but I have been, yeah, I get messages from people. I get people where accounts where maybe they have not messaged me, but I know that they follow me and I have said something to them. And then eventually they just stop posting that same amount of content.
That's awesome.
But one of those transplant kids that, once again, it was the share the story, but I get it because the kid needed new organs. I get that you want to expand that as much as possible. And I have a little more understanding for those accounts. But once his transplant was done and his health was good, and it was no longer a matter of things are touch and go and we're rushing to the hospital every week, that parent clearly started posting less and less and then finally posted. It's like, I don't feel the need to put my kid's whole life out here anymore. He's just a regular kid living a regular life.
Yeah.
And, they update once in a while, and I don't know if I can take credit for that or not. I had messaged them a couple times of like, hey, what the hell are you doing? Like that this is not normal. Um, and it does happen. I've won a few and I've lost a few. And unfortunately, I think the harder I've gone on things this last year, I have they haven't unfollowed me and they haven't blocked me or anything like that. But my happy DMs no longer get answered to. And I think that's because I have probably gone a little too hard on certain things at certain times that has maybe hit a nerve with them. But I'm pretty unapologetic about that.
I mean,
I am,
you're coming from your own experience of, I mean, the first thing you said was the self-hate that you had towards yourself, and you are taking it, and I think you're taking it like kind of upon yourself that like you don't want these other kids to have this experience. And I mean, it really feels like, you're trying to help advocate um with people. And I think that's just it's a really personal issue. It's a huge issue that I don't think a lot of people know how to even go about it at times. Um,
for me,
I think it's really important.
unless I really screw up somehow, and I have once in a while, I am completely unapologetic. I have one of my favorite videos is one of my fake apology videos. Um,
I think I actually remember that one.
yeah, where she's like, I am sorry, I slandered you. When basically it was a matter of I had pissed someone off because I called them a parent rather than a caregiver.
Mm,
And that's a whole we could do another hour on that easy. But
that's a tough one.
I am unapologetic unless I really screw up. And I haven't yet that I know of. I hit hard because for me that is how I get through. I don't subscribe to the be kind narrative in
Yeah.
those situations. I mean, I am the one that will write, I have said straight out, I am the one that will write the equivalent of writing the message on a brick and throwing it through your window. And I don't care if people follow me or not. And I don't care about the algorithm.
Has anyone ever responded back to you like the same way?
No. And the funny thing is,
Do you feel
because
like you would listen to that?
it would depend what they were saying. It's the thing of if you're gonna come at me, you can come at me. You have that right. But you better be right. You better have your convictions. And if you can't convince me, you better be ready to throw down because I'm better than you at the argument.
So
I
have you ever been
promise.
convinced? Like what was one of the last things, and I know this is probably hard to think of on the spot, but like what is something like like a core value of yours or like a thought that you very much believed in that someone changed your mind? And you can
Oh,
think as long as you want. I can always edit out a pause, even if it's like 3 minutes.
I am sure there are things as far as the sharing of the journey. I can't necessarily call out specific things, I am sure there are certain things that I have softened on, if maybe not then hardened back up on more recently. Um, if you go through like getting to the kids thing, there are certain things I have I had softened on about, unfortunately, with some of the arguments that myself and my podcast unit with Bitching and Bolosing with Courtney and Brittany have gotten into recently. We have had to take a harder stance on things, to the point of there is one photo of a child left in my Instagram feed, and that photo remains just because that child has passed and I can't bring myself to take it down. It had a big effect on me. She was the first of what I would say are the Disabledland kids.
Yeah.
And the reason Disabledland kids merch exists. But we have just had to harden up on that so that no one can call us out on that. Like I don't even have mock-ups of kids for kids t-shirts anymore. When I start reworking the kids store, it is just going to be blank mock-ups, no faces.
Interesting.
Um,
I think that
just
makes sense.
just to make that point.
Yeah.
And once again, our algorithm will go down because of it. I have many examples of, we started showing our child less, or we started showing our child's diaper changes less, or anything like that, and their numbers have gone down because that's what people want to see. And to which I say, well, then why do people want to see that?
Yeah.
And so I soften on things, I harden on things. There I think I'm probably at the point right now where I've got a good friend of the pod, Claire, feisty disabled girl on Instagram, who is getting me to soften a little bit on the religion thing. But I am an unapologetic atheist. I make no bones about it. I think religion is great for adults if they want to get into it. I don't believe in indoctrinating able-bodied children into it. And I absolutely 100% disagree with indoctrinating disabled children into it, because there is a whole other level of religious ableism that I could talk for another 3 hours
I was
on.
gonna say I have actually done a
That,
religious. I don't know if you've listened to it, but there's I can it's I basically asked people what they thought about the connection of like religion and non-compliant and then what the view of like non-compliant behavior to people. Um and religion is always a little bit of a touchy subject for people, but yes, we can
yeah.
talk about that
And
forever.
and Claire, I mean, as far as softening me a bit, Claire has gotten me softened up to the point of, okay, maybe it is possible to take your disabled child to church and have it not be a completely awful, screwed up, nightmare ableist experience. I still, for me personally, don't understand why you would do it, but that's me. And I do go hard on that. And I think that is why I have lost a few people.
Yeah. I mean, and what I talk about in the episode is that I think church and religion is kind of a place where people have felt welcomed, where they don't know where their community is, and like the church has like kind of welcomed them into a community. I can't even summarize everything that I feel about religion, but I see that there are people who, and I think a lot with like parents who have disabled children, they're frustrated, they're trying to find a community, and it's what I think is so frustrating is that they have to like also battle all this ableism. They have to battle all these doctor visits of like doctors telling you that your kid can't do something. They're being told their kid can't go to school with their siblings and have to be in a different classroom. Um, And I think it's just, we're just trying to find how we all fit into this world, and it's hard. And I think social media makes it so much harder. So gosh, yeah, we have to stop because we'll never stop. And
Oh yeah.
I keep checking my phone. I have a kid's birthday party I have to leave for in like 2 minutes. But yeah, seriously, I'm pretty sure we
Yep.
can talk like for days. But Wes, thank you so much for being here. And I'm gonna put everything in the show notes of like how people can find you, your podcast, your
Yep.
accounts. I don't know your email if you want that in there,
Yeah,
social
no.
security number.
The email is not necessary. It is the Disabled Land podcast. Just like Disneyland, only disabled.
Oh
I
my
am
gosh, I don't think
uh,
I ever connected that. Is that why that's your name?
oh yeah, that's why I have a theme park theme for my whole podcast.
Gosh,
You can come on by, you can
I
meet
love that.
Brenda. And I also have a now production role at the Bitching and Bossing podcast with Courtney and Brittany.
Yes,
They are
I'll
in their
definitely
second
put them down
season.
too.
And yeah, it things are going well. So
That is great. Well, thank you so much for being here. Everything is down below. Inclusion starts with you, and I just want to help.